It's Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. I was alerted to a film that I'd never heard of, but from a writer-director I've seen a lot of stuff from, Albert Pyun, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, who most people probably know from the film Nemesis. Lando, Len Kabaczynski, we all love that movie. It's a great science fiction film. If you've never seen it, you really should see it. But this is a movie from, let's see, Nemesis was 92, so this would be 7 years earlier, 7 or 8, depending on where you see the listing for it. But most places it says 1985, and it's a film called Radioactive Dreams, and it stars future canon future canon wanted to make him into a superstar, I want to say that correctly, Michael Dudikoff, and, oh boy, it's either John Stockwell or John Stockman. I'm sorry, I forgot to look and verify the name before I started recording. But they're the leads. And this, I had seen in the same Discord post that somebody had mentioned that this was a big influence on the Fallout games, the original Fallout games. And I thought, oh, okay, well, it's a post-nuclear apocalyptic science fiction comedy, so I'm already interested, and that it seems to have some influence, and of course Fallout has many influences, so this is not like it's ripped off or anything, but a influence, and the timing makes sense. When Fallout came out, the people who made it likely would have seen this if they were into this type of film and were making this type of game. They were probably looking around at different media and fiction to kind of incorporate, see what ideas they like, so it makes sense. And I also say it's much more of a science fiction film than a comedy. It has comedic elements, but I would not really describe it as a science fiction comedy in the sense of something like Spaceballs, say, which is a science fiction comedy, equal parts both sides, more of a parody or a satire, but still, you know what I mean. The comedic elements are definitely more subdued in this. And essentially what we get here is somewhat of a Fallout premise. The main characters are two kids who, when they're very, very young, are sealed into a Fallout bunker, a traditional kind of 50s bunker by their parents. Now, the bombs drop in the 90s, so the culture had already moved well past the 50s, but these kids were really young, and they get trapped in there with their fathers, and their fathers, the stuff in the bunker is all from the 50s. So the fathers are reading them stories that are geared around the 50s, so they grow up emulating the culture of the 1950s. But outside, of course, the world has gone way past that, but they don't know that because they were too young to really understand that. So when they do emerge from the bunker, roughly 18 years later, they have basically formed their identities on 50s private investigator characters. In fact, when they come out, their goal is to become private investigators. Even the way they speak, the way they move, the way they kind of talk to people is all geared around what would be a 50s way of interacting with the world. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, now it's 2000. So they would be around 1819 because it's 2001, I believe, when they emerge, which would be about 15 years later. Maybe it's 2011. Yeah, I think maybe it's going to be 2011. Whatever it is, it's quite a ways later when they're now grown up and at least young adults. And so the world that they encounter looks at them as anachronisms, which they are, because that's what they grew up with. And they very quickly become embroiled in a multi-gang war over a set of nuclear launch keys that are apparently for the last nuclear missile left, at least in the United States, possibly the world. We don't really know that, but that's what everybody says. And the movie is about them kind of trying to figure out how to stay alive and work out what is going on and why people are after them and what these keys are for and whether their fathers are still alive somewhere out in the wasteland. And that's the basic story. Just like most Pyun productions, it's definitely got some limitations on budget. There's moments where the narrative kind of jumps around, but it's basically a very solid film and a very fun film if you're into this genre of movies, which I definitely am. I love the post-nuclear war genre whenever it's done well, and it's done well enough in this that I found it to be very entertaining. Now, the only copy there really is, apparently there's a German DVD of it, but I've been linked to a YouTube copy. It's okay. It's not great. I've seen better YouTube copies of movies, but it's certainly watchable. It's something that you can see it, get enough of the movie to appreciate it and understand it, but I really hope, because Pyun died late last year, I really hope that there is an effort to remaster and make better versions of his films, and that this is included in that set. Because I have to tell you, I liked it a lot. So if you have any interest, if you like the Fallout series, if you like this type of fiction, the post-nuclear type of apocalypse stuff, you'll probably have a really good time with it. I'm not going to tell you that it's secretly a great film that nobody knows about. It definitely has its limitations, but it's a blast, just like Nemesis. I mean, Nemesis isn't necessarily top-shelf science fiction, but it's a hell of a lot of fun, and so is Radioactive Dreams. So again, Radioactive Dreams 85, I will link to the YouTube video, worth watching if you like this stuff. Later.